So thank you very much, Eleanor. Very happy to be with you. Thank you for the invitation. So I'll start with the less interesting part of the talk, me. I'm a medical doctor, I used to, and also, let's say, really interested by science, and I did also a PhD in mathematics while I was studying medicine, and at some point crossed to the mind of a few friends and me the idea of developing something that we will call EchOpen, which is an ultrasound handheld device, and I will come back to that. Let's say that the overall story of today is mainly how we can pass from, let's say, an open source project to an industrial one, which is from paradise to hell. It has been a long journey. We started like 8-9 years before, and there is still a lot of challenges ahead of us, but the mission is intact. The idea for us is really to democratize access to imagery worldwide. This is the starting point of our journey. And when you think over the imagery modality, there are a few ones that are quite common: CT scan, MRIs, ultrasound. But the ultrasound is really interesting to, let's say, being a vector of access to imagery diagnosis. And the idea about ultrasound is twofold. It's non-invasive, meaning that you can use it like a long time without injuring any patient, other than willingly. And the technology can be miniaturized, which is way less easy for other imagery modality, though there are today projects that are going in this direction with MRIs or CT scan. So the mission is quite broad. We selected the topic, which was the ultrasound, and it happened that in my life when I was a young resident, I had the issue to lose 2 night shifts in a row, patients having aneurysm of the abdominal aorta who died, unfortunately. And whether we would have had a medical doctor who intervened on site, had an ultrasound modality, then we could have taken better care of the patients and maybe saved them. So the idea was spinning, and with a few friends and one engineer called Luc Jonvaux and one medical doctor called Pierre Boyer, we said, okay, definitely ultrasound imagery is really a key imagery modality, and it can, let's say, solve at scale issue of, there is maybe an issue, but whatever, I can comment over, no issue at all. Issue at scale, let's say, imagery access issue. We think that overall 2/3 of the worldwide population do not have access to imagery diagnosis. So the core mission was to make it accessible, and really all our engineering efforts up to now are dedicated to make it affordable, to make it cheap. And let's say that at the moment we started the project, they were kind of beginning, like let's say a big manufacturer started to manufacture device at around 10,000 K, and we said, okay, we should go to 500 euro a device in order for it to be really affordable. Let's say like a stethoscope, like high end of the stethoscope at 200-300 euros, and if we would have this kind of target price, we could make it really broadly available. And in the meantime, let's say that the scientific literature was more and more compelling on the fact that what we call POCUS, point of care ultrasound, this kind of ultrasound portable, even ultra-portable, used on the field where the patient is something key, not only to make the access possible, but also to improve the diagnosis. In which way? The classical way when a medical doctor meets a patient is to proceed to what we call clinical examination. I'm sure you all pass through that, palpation, auscultation, those things that didn't evolve for centuries that are quite interesting, but very, let's say, with a very poor sensitivity and specificity. And we have a lot of studies now saying that when you enhance clinical examination through clinical ultrasound, then you switch on symptomatic patients 1 on 2 the diagnosis, which is huge. 1 on 3 the treatment, which is again huge. So the impact is really massive. So there are a lot of, let's say, big, let's say, medical community or big reviews, scientific reviews calling for, let's say, the stethoscope of the 21st century, which is, let's say, a marketing way to say that, but this is something very key. So going back to where we were at, let's say, 8-9 years ago, so we said, okay, we'll make it affordable and we'll make it available so that we started to build the open source community and saying, okay, we will manufacture the core elements of the technology through an open source, let's say, effort, and bring the device at the level of quality and security it has to. So we gathered a community in a hospital called Hôpitaux, which is based in Paris, which is part of APHP, Assistance Publique des Hôpitaux de Paris, which is one of the key partners. And together with another foundation, Fondation Pierre Fabre, we started to work with a few people, were 4 or 5 at the beginning, and say, okay, let's start to get our first echo. So here, there's really pretty much, this open source way of doing and taking everything we had on the hand to get the first signals. And at some point, we were really, really happy to get the first echo. It was 2 metallic plates that were reflecting the ultrasound. It was far, far from being usable from, let's say, medical standpoints, but it was a first step. And on the first step, we managed to grow the community and let's say, to bring the technology each time at the level beyond. And at some point, we're able to sonograph a hand of our engineer, which is courageous here. Maybe I don't know if it was totally safe to use it on the water, but it worked, and we broadcast the data on, let's say, a basic morbid application. Here we can, let's say, guess the bones of the hands. The community was still growing, and we grew also the interests of many universities, like being interested to teach the ultrasound, and whether really on the physics side or on the biomed side. And we released all the let's say, modules, both software and hardware in open source, as documented as we could. And the technology being to be more and more, let's say, accurate. And at some points, we hit, let's say, I think in 2018, our first targets, and the 2018 or 2019, which was like a device that was used by radiologists here on the left. It was used by radiologists to do ultrasound radiology in, let's say, late 90s, beginning of the 20s. And the quality of the image was not that far. And we're pretty happy about that. And this is the moment where we started to say ourselves, where should we go? And it's a thing to, let's say, release on open source, let's say, pieces of technologies that anybody could assemble and make it like as a full, totally disconnected device, but working. And it's another thing to say, okay, we should bring it to the patients. And here we have many obstacles. The obstacle of getting it, let's say, certified. It should have the right quality and the right, let's say, performance, and also on the other side, the safety of the device. And another huge concern about how we industrialize those kind of devices. So the community was there, assembled in an association, still alive, association EchOpen. And we had a lot of talks of how we would go to enhance the technology and make it really available for the patients. And it's huge money, and at that point we had maybe 100K here and there of support, and we knew that really to fully industrialize a medical device, which is a class 2A regulatory-wise, we need more than 10 millions. So we started to go and knock on the door of foundations and a lot of people, and we understood that we're not exactly in the ecosystem. Maybe in the United States would have been possible, but let's say in France or in Europe was really hard to get money. So the community thought that we should bring the technology to let's say a larger, broader ambition and make it like really affordable for the patients. And this we need to turn ourselves into, the community to turn itself into a company. So in the meantime, we were maturing, let's say, the way we would become a company. Still at the association stage, we went to this device, which was big, but let's say the core feeling that the quality was not exactly reached, but we were on the path, and we would know based on that we could reach the level of quality that we needed, and also the fact that this device could be industrialized in one way or another, both for the electronics and the mechanics part that sweeps the sensors. So the talk went on and the community, like with the, let's say, unanimity, said, okay, we will create a company, and the association will be the co-founder of the company, and the community brought itself into the company as shareholders, and we had, let's say, open and consensual discussion on how we would be shareholders and how we will share all the part of the company, and then this was the beginning of EchOpen Factory. Basically, let's say on the web, maybe I have it here. Wait, you can find the essential tools to, let's say, build up a prototype of a working ultrasound machine, working on a smartphone with a Wi-Fi point-to-point connection without any wire. And this is used by, let's say, universities to teach in an open way without any black box the ultrasound, and we'll be really happy also to continue to contribute on that. And here, wait, up. Yeah, the community at the stage of 2020 was here and there in several countries, but let's say the core contributors were, let's say, we have a lot of supporters, but the core contributors were based in Paris. So this is the device that we produced, let's say, after a lot of effort to make it at the level of quality we needed. And what we mean by the level of quality, it's a device that has to be used on patients. And for what we call clinical ultrasound, there are two main questions that any, let's say, healthcare professional can ask himself to get a better care of the patient is how the condition is it serious or not, and which organ are damaged. And for that, whether it's the lung, the heart, the liver, the kidney, the bladder, you have to get the right image, the enough quality, let's say, image to get to those kind of binary kind of information that you need for screening purpose. Which is definitely a huge need, whether in hospital, whether at home, city medicine, or in underserved areas. And pretty much we got this, I think, in 2022. And we kept on, let's say, improving the industriability of the device. Yeah, I think I have issues. Yeah. Sorry, guys, but yeah, it's shortened in a way. But let's say that we continue to animate a community now for medical students with, let's say, a whole environment for the device. And let's say that a talk can't be complete if we don't say the word AI. So we do AI, obviously. But really mainly for clinical orientation purpose. And here we can automatically compute the bladder volume, and this will be released, I think, in March 2025. And then we have, for NO 2025, what we call the left ventricular ejection fraction computation, which means that you get a feeling of how the heart is working. These are all the partners that we gathered, and Fondation Pierre Fabre and Fondation Sanofi Espoir were really key to fund the project. And also former Altran becoming Capgemini Engineering, they helped us really to get this point where you're prototyping to the point of you're making an industrial device. And it's very, very hard until now. We're on the market for a few months. We certified the device under the last medical regulation, which is extremely demanding. Like we submitted something like, I don't know, 3,000 to 4,000 pages of documentation, hundred of tests. And if one of the tests fails, you're done. And you can imagine how many failed tests we have, and it's very hard to make it sound. And then you go to another story, which is selling the device, which is very enthusiastic when you see the device, let's say, work on patients. And we're deployed now in a few hospitals, whether big or small, also in city medicine. The issue that we have is that we have more issues, let's say, on the production side, so we're not able to respond correctly to the demand, which means that, let's say, there is a heavy need to be fulfilled, and we're on the way to do that. We do that in France, we do that in North Africa, we do that also in Ukraine, where we equipped some medical doctors that were really happy about, let's say, using a device on very binary thing. And for the front in Ukraine, which was very important, is when you have to know if the injured guy has to be, let's say, hospitalized back, or if you can maintain him on the field. So it's quite exciting from that perspective to see that really the device can meet the mission, help, and we have stories where really it saved lives. The other part of the story is all about industrialization, production, and sales, marketing, and all those topics that are, let's say, way from my, let's say, academic background. But but we're doing the job. I would mention some projects that we have, especially in Africa, where we just finished a clinical study in Senegal on maternal health with nice, let's say, results. And definitely the device can be also deployed in underserved areas where there is definitely no tools to do nothing, and having a way to, let's say, put the right diagnosis for the patient is something that can be really a matter of life-saving. I think I'm pretty much done for the presentation. I'm really happy to answer the question.